Cosmic awareness, or cosmic consciousness, as it's sometimes called, is the realization that we're light, that each one of us is light. In the early stages of our cosmic awareness, we see ourselves as beings of light. There's still a sense of separativity. When we meditate and we're able to stop all thought, suddenly we're suffused with light. We get a sense of being outside of the body or beyond the body. Our consciousness expands. And we see ourselves as beings of light. And that's certainly true. As we progress in our inundation with light, as we make friends with light and we come to know it better, we come to know our substance and our essence, then we find that we're not really separate beings of light, that that's a dream that we're having, the dream of multiplicity. Each one of us dreams that we're a separate individual with a history, a future, with a moment, with something to do or nothing to do. Meditation takes us beyond the moment to eternal awareness, cosmic consciousness, nirvana. These states of awareness are open to everyone. It's just a question of where we focus our time and energy. To become conscious is like swimming up from the bottom of a lake. We're down at the bottom of the lake and we're swimming around and everything's murky and dark. And all we have to do is swim towards the light, towards the surface. And as we go higher, it'll get brighter and brighter, and suddenly we'll break through the surface. And there'll be nothing but light. The murkiness will fade away. In our day-to-day life, we're swimming below the surface, planning, making decisions, revisions, schedules to keep, people to meet, people to forget. We see ourselves changing, aging. Maybe we're conscious of it. Maybe it's better that we're not. We experience pleasure, pain, freeways, which are a mixture of both, depending upon the time of day. And people promise us enlightenment, instant satisfaction, in one form or another. But it's a very rare individual who realizes that they're not an individual. It's a very rare person who goes beyond their personality. Now, of these, there are two types, the lucky and the unlucky. The lucky are those souls, those beings, those persons who meditate, who seek, who experience the divinity of all things. And then they go away. One day they climb on top of a mountain and they're gone. Life just takes them away. Oh, they may have died, but they couldn't have really died since they had left long before death came. They merged with the all. They reached the end of the cycle of birth and death. The lucky, the few, the proud. Yeah. Then there are those who follow a different path. They perhaps went to a good private school also. They attained liberation, or liberation attained them. But they chose to, were forced to, were browbeaten by God into working in the world with people. The unlucky. We call these people heroes after they've been dead for a long, long time. During their lives, we call them fools usually. Put them in exile, make political prisoners out of them, assassinate them, crucify them, emulate them occasionally, but rarely deal with who and what they are, And even more than who and what they are, since that's actually not that important, simply what they have to say, their expression. The expression of an enlightened person is not what they say with words. There's nothing you can say about the supraconscious. You can paint a gradual picture. I don't know if you remember when you were a kid, they had this thing, the Etch-a-Sketch. It was a great device they brought out, and it was this little square screen, and it had two little knobs on it, and you could draw lines with it, and these perfect lines would appear on the screen. And if you did the right one, you'd get a vertical line, and the left one a horizontal line, and you could make intricate little mazes and designs, and if you were clever, you could do both at once and kind of get curves. See? And that's what life is like for most people. But for someone who's enlightened, it's not like that at all. For someone who's enlightened, there is nothing but light. That's why we use that phrase. Nothing appears to be solid anymore because it isn't. They have the ability to pass through countless dreams of existence, see the past, the present, the future, and beyond. They can be in thousands of places at once, experience all tonalities of emotion, and then go beyond the human to the superhuman, to become God, to be the awareness of truth itself. To transmit that, to try and bring that across, it's hard to do in words. You can do parables, analogies, exhortations, beg, plead. But the way the truth is manifested really by a person who's attained truth is probably in their expression. Maybe in the way they answer a question, not so much in what they say. Perhaps a gesture, a way of being that's so fluid that there is no perception of being as we know it. Everyone likes flash. I do too. Everyone likes excitement, the brighter horizon. But there's a certain simplicity and subtlety that suggests depth, which is necessary to have as a perceiver if you follow the pathway to truth. I can't tell you where truth lies or what it is, because I have no words for such things. When I meditate, there's nothing but that. And that's all there is now for me is meditation. And one day it will be the same way for you. I'm not an example of anything. I'm not a particularly virtuous person. But something has occurred to me in the process of living and dying and living and dying, which has put an end to that process. And I don't usually talk too much about it. Usually I lecture on meditation and self-discovery and methods, or I try and make people laugh and have a nice time. All the time meditating and suffusing them with the Kundalini, the light that creates liberation, or beckons it in any case. But from my point of view, self-realization, liberation, these big words, indicate a very simplified state of being. Something that's so subtle yet so all-encompassing that we're apt to miss it in our search for liberation and self-realization. Everybody wants to be in the program. You're either on the bus or you're off the bus. but sometimes it's nice to walk. Going fast is just an idea that someone created who thought it would be better to look at life that way. But there's no such thing as anything unless you think there is. As Shakespeare said it through the voice of one of his characters, nothing is neither good nor bad, only thinking makes it so. But if we consider that statement in its depth and all of its implications, we'll probably go stark raving mad. Because we'll realize that nothing is the way it appears to be. Everything is an illusion in the sense that we have constructed reality by dreaming it into a certain form, and that there's nothing that you can count on. Everything that appears to be real is transitory. Even your ideas about truth and love and self-giving, all these things are transitory. And many people become very bitter at this stage in their spiritual evolution. They reach a point where they see that life, in a sense, is a fabrication. That the simplistic dreams of heaven and good conduct and these sort of things that we're told aren't exactly relevant. Well, what's a mother to do? You get out the soy hamburger helper and stretch it. When times get tough, that's what you do. For the soy burgers. So, in the same sense, you learn to stretch reality. And you can stretch reality a long way if you're talented. Take it from me. By stretching reality, I mean that to develop the despondent existential point of view as manifested by Camus and Sartre and others is interesting. It's an artistic experience, but it's not a place to really live. Walking around in that desert of the mind with myriad strange disconnected objects appearing and disappearing without sequence. A sense of order is necessary. That's what the British brought the world. People like order. It's an illusion that you can count on. But when the illusion of order goes away, what do you have? The illusion of disorder. If the illusion of God goes away, then what do we have? Well, the illusion that there's no God, no one cares. The mechanistic universe of the 18th century. The big machine that no one's running, gone out of control. So philosophers delve with these ideas. I don't bother. Because when you meditate, there's nothing but light. All ideas, all notions of self, of importance, love, hate, joy, gratitude, all these things go away. All the dreams cease. And what is so complete and so perfect, the radiance of the light of existence, the pure knowledge, the experience of bliss, there are really no words. That one experiences in samadhi and in nirvana. When you return to that source which you are, is beyond any expression, any experience. If you were to take all the wonderful moments that have ever been or will ever be in any world, at any time, in any location, that you can imagine and beyond your imagining, and put them together, if you were absorbed in nirvana, you wouldn't notice. It would be a candle held up to a supernova. It would melt quickly. So what I'm suggesting is then that life is far more perfect and precious than people realize. Particularly people who seek perfection. seems to me people become so caught up in the rut of spiritual seeking that they forget the moment. It's always, I want to get to the next stage, the next plane. I want to get through this experience because then it will all be better. Never realizing that all they have to do at any given moment is stop all their thought, enter into sublime meditation, and that's it. It won't happen mañana. It already is. There's nothing that you have to do. Now, naturally, to do that, to stop all your thought, to enter into samadhi, that transcendental state of awareness, and experience truth, is difficult because it means you have to accept and embrace every aspect of yourself, be it, in your definition, wonderful or horrible, because everything is God. That means that you have to accept every part of yourself as being perfect, even when you know that it's not. And even that sense of knowing that it's not, that incompletion, that question mark, has to be erased. Gradually, as you shift through the fields of attention, as you meditate, each aspect of the self dissolves. And then finally, that consciousness of dissolution, that illusion that there was a self to dissolve, or there was a self, or there wasn't, dissolves. And then there's silence and stillness. And if the wind blows, who's there to hear it? People don't like that. It's too perfect. Human beings can't stand very much reality. That's why if you wish to traverse the snowy ranges of self-realization and enlightened consciousness, you can no longer be a human being as you define human being. You have an idea. This is a person. This is what they can do. This is what they can't do. Birds fly, people don't. People fill out tax forms, birds don't. But in my world, birds are CPAs. And you see people flying around all the time. Now, admittedly, I live in a very strange world. I agree. So eternal consciousness is very available, but it's necessary for a little bit of house cleaning to occur. It's necessary to let go of your attachments. Now, that's when everybody gets very nervous, because they all know they have attachments. They're closets that have not been cleaned out. They're papers that are not in order. They're things that haven't been mailed. They're clothes that haven't been mended. There are two approaches. One is conservative, the other is radical. The conservative approach is to go through gradually through every part of the house, mending the clothing, cleaning out the closets, and just to do this continually. The other approach is to burn the house. Collect the insurance and go someplace else. You can follow either approach. I personally like a combination. I like to clean up the house, get everything in order, make it all perfect, then burn it. I think it makes for a better fire. Now, the conservative approach involves going through every aspect of your being and perfecting it. It means gradually bringing light and love, dedication, selflessness, and humility and purity into everything you do, not being afraid of making mistakes, realizing that through meditation and selfless giving, through time and patience, through inspiration of others, this will occur. To find someone who has reached enlightenment shows you, if nothing else, that if that turkey could do it, so could you. It's very inspiring. When you see the people who have reached enlightenment, by and large, are very silly people. And it seems to me that anyone who has their act halfway together could easily do it. I think that's why God does that. God has the silly people attain enlightenment first, just to inspire everybody. Now, the other approach, of course, is very radical. That's just to burn it right away. Just do it. The problem is, though, sometimes in our haste to burn down the house, we burn ourselves. It's riskier. That's the short path in Tibetan yoga. Very fast evolution. But the danger is that sometimes the result is counterproductive to the very thing that we sought. We go so fast, we speed ourselves up, our evolution, to such a point that we reject the entire experience. It's just too much to handle, and we leave it behind. So for most persons, it's best to follow the gradual path to enlightenment. The gradual path is not at all slow. There is no slow and there is no fast. Or if you're interested in speed, the fastest is the one that works. So we perfect every aspect of our being. This is the gentle approach, where we're not afraid, over a period of time, of lifetimes perhaps, to come to know ourselves, to know that we're not single, that we're not individuals, that we're not bodies of light, but that we are light itself. The actual transmission of light, to make this not theoretical but actual in your being, to not have it be another nice talk that we'll listen to tonight and then we'll pass on into oblivion. If I could transmit an essence, it would take two forms. Both are meditative. Because without meditation, there's really no realization. Selfless giving in karma yoga is good as long as one meditates. I've seen people practice selfless giving, karma yoga, working endlessly for others who are in a terrible state of consciousness, who were in a good state of consciousness, and then when they did too much selfless giving, they were in a lower state of awareness because they did not have the ability to maintain a high level of awareness and remember why they were doing it in the action. This is the spiritual burnout syndrome that you see sometimes in ashrams and spiritual gathering places. They got so into helping others that they forgot to meditate, which was only because they really didn't want to meditate at all. It was an excuse to avoid development. I'm going to work so hard for others that I don't have to deal with myself. Kind of a nifty approach. So I think that it's better always first to learn to meditate and to practice selfless giving as you're inspired to do so. And you'll find your capacity to do more for others will increase, but never to forget the source, meditation, to always come back to stillness, to silence. You don't have to think of what you can do, how you should change, what decision to make your life into what you want it to be. Because if you're still thinking about those things, the knowledge that you're gaining is coming from the relative mind, and it's subject to much delusion. But if you meditate deeply, several times a day, if that is the center of your practice, then in that meditation, you will become light. You will transform and change, and you will find that you don't have to inspire yourself to do what's right, because you've already become what's right. I respect self-giving, and I've tried to lead my life with that as the ideal. But real self-giving is when we take our self, our being, that which is most precious to us, our ego, our bodies, our minds, our values, our past, our present, and our futures. And we sit in meditation and we throw that all into eternity. There's just a sense of total offering to that larger infinite self, to God, to the supreme reality, our whole being. We just let it go without worrying about whether we'll come back or not, or how we'll change, because there's no trust there. The trust must be total. And this trust develops a little bit each time you meditate. When you see that each time you meditate, life is brighter, things are better. The objective world will not change. The objective world is the objective world. You will change. And you'll see that the objective world is not objective, but subjective. You can dream it into any form that you like, or just go simply beyond it, or get into it, whatever suits you. So the meditation then comes in two forms. One form is when you meditate by yourself. Each morning when you meditate, each evening when you meditate, or at any other time of the day, you sit by yourself to go beyond the idea that you're by yourself. There is no aloneness in meditation. There is no want for company. Your companion is eternity. When the light is so complete, when your being is so pure and perfect, that there is no separation between yourself and that refulgent ecstasy of being, who could want? Who could need when you've become the limitless? And this we try and do when we meditate. On the other hand, we go to a teacher. We find someone who has merged with the limitless, who is a reflection of the limitless in their meditation. They'll still have a personal form, a personality of some type, a physical body. But their consciousness is no longer human as we know human. It's light. They broke down the barriers. The big wave came and washed everything away, and now there's nothing but ocean. When you meditate with such a person, you change. Because the dynamic force of eternity manifests through them in such a way, so powerfully, that it inundates all whom are present physically with a power that we call the Kundalini, prana, Shakti, different names for this essential life force. And one who is receptive to that, one who meditates, travels far beyond what they might have been capable of themselves. Or we could say their awareness is stretched, and once it's been stretched, it's easier for them to stretch it themselves. Different terms to explain that which is an inexplicable mystery. This is why people have gone to study with holy persons, teachers, enlightened beings, or they just travel to places of pilgrimages, to physical locales where the vibratory energy is high and pure, because for thousands of years, spirituality has been practiced there. The aura of a mountain, of a place, becomes so powerful that if one is sensitized, when you go to a place of power, it has a transformative effect on your being, so that you don't leave, someone else does, your real self. The problems, the delusions, the frustrations are there, but we go to the Grand Canyon and we look into the infinite. And suddenly in that complete silence, we remember something that can't be put in words. That silence is not in that place, it's within ourselves. It is ourselves. There is no death. Death is an idea in the mind of people who still have ideas. I experience death many times a day. Every time I am fully absorbed, that's death. same as the physical, and it's wonderful. You just return to the source. People who fear death, it's so unfortunate. Death is never anything to fear. It's just the emergence of your transcendental form. So we try and combine the two, if that seems suitable to us. We find the person we feel in all of this vast world, who we have access to, who knows the least. And we go to them to unlearn. With the knowledge that what they're trying to teach us is a gesture, a way of being, not a philosophy. Philosophers teach us philosophy. From the enlightened, we learn a way of being, which they convey by their actions, by their conscious awareness. There's a certain naturalness that we learn from their physical beings or their personality. But even more so, we study their awareness. Because if we can see their awareness, soon we'll discover that awareness within ourselves. That's the transmission of light. That's the self-giving. That's the love, to give light to others, to give our very substance to our very substance. So meditation for me has been that and is that. It takes countless forms. It's like a symphony, different movements, tonalities, instruments playing, crescendos. It takes all the form of human personality and then goes beyond anything that we've known as human, or even our ideas of the superhuman. Every aspect of existence is yourself. You experience them all, and then you go beyond them all into the emergence in light. And then you find yourself back on the planet, walking out on the street, driving in your car down the freeway. The same yet very different. Aware, watching this dream that we're in now. But you're free. In the dream you can be free. In a jail cell you can be free. That's the freedom of a perceiver of consciousness. So in our journey, we shouldn't go too far. We shouldn't go farther than stillness. And stillness is something that accompanies action. It's the silence between the words that gives the words their power. Otherwise, there would just be endless sound. One sound would not be distinguishable from the next. So we don't sit simply absorbed in meditation all of the time. We meditate and we become eternity consciously. Then eternity changes form and we are in the field of action. We're busy, we're laughing, we're crying, we're experiencing. It's not necessary to kill your human nature to realize God, because the human nature is God. There's just an addition of eternity, that awareness. Gestures are important. It's the subtlety, in my estimation, that has power. Silence has tremendous power. And if you can give yourself enough room to be emphatic, to be excited, to be confused, to be deluded, and then to step beyond that through that golden door to eternity, to perfection, and not see that the two are different, to not even think about it or worry about it, is to lead a complete life, beyond life and death. So these words that I've said have been said for thousands of years, millions, billions. in different ages and different cycles, in different places, on different planes of being, by the self to the self. And I don't feel that these words can change anything, nor should they. They just are, as we all are. But let's just say that they're a gesture, a reaching out. Kind of like when a flower blossoms in a field and no one will ever see it. There's an integrity to that. And then it passes away. And no one ever knew. That makes for a happy flower. In the I Ching, the Venerable Chinese Book of Wisdom, we are told that for every ending there is a new beginning. And if there is a watchword, a mantra for a person who seeks eternity, it's that phrase. Throughout the ages, human beings have sought enlightenment. We have been all of those beings throughout the ages who have sought enlightenment. Today, a few people seek enlightenment. We are those persons who seek enlightenment. In the future, there will be innumerable, countless beings who seek enlightenment. We are all of those beings who have already had their so-called enlightenment. The idea that there is a past and a future is illusory, which does not mean that there is not a past and a future. There is a past and a future in this world in relative time. Then, of course, there's timeless time, that realm of existence that's not defined in the supraconscious, true awareness, when we experience the ultimate reality without words, without hidden meanings. But between the supraconscious and the conscious, there's a space, a gap, which each one of us experiences on the way towards the transcendental reality. It's the journey that we make, called self-discovery. Self-discovery comes in so many different forms and formats. The form varies according to the individual. The format is the path that you walk upon. But for every ending, there's a new beginning. The world is filled with frustration. Doubt, ignorance, hatred, fear, oppression, and repression. The world is also made of pure beauty and light. We could say that this world, this grand stage that we walk upon, that we call Earth, life, this life is a field of action, a screen, a place to dream, many, many different dreams. All of our successive lifetimes are dreams, and yet they're real dreams. The pathway to enlightenment is not necessarily very long in retrospect. For one who is seeking enlightenment, it seems endless something that will never happen, that only happens to a chosen few. And it's true. Enlightenment only occurs to a chosen few. So I suppose if we could find out who's choosing and have a serious talk with the one who's doing the choosing, it might be possible for us to become part of the chosen few. However, I have to speak out for the unenlightened. And I think it's necessary to be the defense counsel this evening, or any evening, for those who avoid enlightenment. Because I think of all actions which are noble and fruitful, this is perhaps the most ridiculous. But if we have a broad-based understanding of life, and if we have a heart that's big enough to accept the diversity of existence beyond the knowable, within and without reason, then some of the following may make sense. Why you shouldn't attain enlightenment. There's really no reason to attain enlightenment. Since we all know philosophically that we all are enlightened. At least that's what enlightened people say. Yet you know that that's not true, which means all enlightened people lie. Why would you want to become a liar? Therefore, you can be truthful and avoid enlightenment. Being enlightened doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy all the time. This is one of the illusions of enlightenment. Therefore, if you want to be happy all the time, you should not be enlightened. Enlightenment leads to intense frustration. It gives the word new character. Therefore, if you want to avoid frustration, you should definitely avoid enlightenment. Enlightenment or liberation or self-realization, whatever we choose to call it, can't be very good, otherwise more people would seriously endeavor to experience it or become it. Clearly the world is filled with persons who are wise. We know that the more years you live in this world, the more you know. The smarter you are. We learn from our experiences. And judging from the learned world and the knowledge that the elderly possess, we know that enlightenment can be of little value because very few elderly people are enlightened. And even fewer young people are enlightened. So if youth has anything to teach us, it's to avoid enlightenment at all costs. If old age has anything to teach us, it's to avoid enlightenment in most cases. And there's nothing good about middle age, we all know that. That's the time when people raise families. As opposed to raising their kundalini. The world has never cared much for enlightenment. If we use history as an example, and since we know that history repeats itself, we can assume that the world probably will never care for enlightenment, the people of the world. The dominant themes that seem to repeat again and again, historically, are oppression, violence, hatred, and a tremendous, tremendous appreciation on the part of almost all, even those who oppress and hate and are violent, of beauty. Strange dichotomy. If we consider those who are successful in the world, we will find that very often they are unenlightened. As a matter of fact, judging by worldly standards, most persons who have attained enlightenment have missed worldly success. Therefore, if you wish to be very, very successful in life, you should not waste your time on pursuing enlightenment. What few misfits seek enlightenment, seriously seek enlightenment? There are many who dabble, but what few really are interested in enlightenment? If we can do a profile, is there something that they have in common? Did they have a bad childhood? Is there a certain socioeconomic structure that they grew out of? Why should they be so dissatisfied with all the world has to offer that they seek something else? We know their reasons. They say that the world is filled with suffering, frustration, that all human beings are bound by desires, that these desires lead them to experience craving, some fleeting satisfaction followed by pain, that to live in the desiring physical consciousness is to not experience the ultimate bliss. Crackpots, if you ask me. Most of them probably couldn't even hold a job. It might be better for the human race to eradicate these few individuals, to round them all up and take them to the top of a mountain and just let them sit there and meditate their little hearts out. And the rest of the world could just go on with life, with earning a living, procreation, the things that count. Now, it is possible that these few misguided souls who have attained enlightenment have had such a massive effect on certain segments of society because they appear to have miraculous powers. However, it's never been exactly substantiated as to whether this is true or not. We have reports of persons walking on water, flying through the air, doing many, many things which reasonable people know are not possible. Why should people be so preoccupied with these things? Even if they're attainable, will they bring happiness? You walk on land now, will walking on water make you happy? How would the fish feel? Looking up, seeing all these feet. In short, if God wanted human beings to fly through the air, walk on the water, she would have made it possible. But in her wisdom, she didn't. There are some persons who have spent time with these lunatics, the enlightened. and they claim that spending time with them has changed them. But we, as serious-minded people, must ask ourselves, have these changes been for the better? Some have given up families, careers, noble occupations. To go and be with these persons, to spend time with them, because they say that it has brought them a bliss and a knowledge that surpasses understanding. People who take cocaine report similar experiences. As we know, the cults flourish from age to age, be it the cult of Christianity, the cult of Judaism, whatever it may be, age after age. Sometimes they become more popular. Sometimes the cults become the establishment itself and decry the rise of any new cult that threatens their supremacy. If a cult is established, it appears to be all right, if it's in the socio-political structure. The new ones are problematic. This is history. Now, if we really observe the enlightened, and we separate the enlightened from those who claim to be enlightened and who are not, we will see an interesting phenomena. We will observe that those who claim to be enlightened very often are socially destructive. They do seem to abuse power. They develop large followings of persons who, through their association, are the poorer for their experience. These are usually individuals who did not have the power of choice. They were suffering from various problems and were promised instant salvation and gave everything for it. And their temporary euphoria seems to pass as mind control takes a grip. You'll notice, though, historically, interestingly enough, that the persons who are actually enlightened don't affect people in this way. As a matter of fact, during their lifetime, enlightened persons create practically no social change whatsoever. Because they make absolutely no demands upon the individuals who come to them. As a matter of fact, rather than trying to encourage persons to become examples or replicants of themselves, of those who claim to be or are enlightened, they do just the opposite. They suggest that everyone has to find truth in their own way and must be themselves. Many enlightened teachers have actually chased persons away, saying that they should not worry about enlightenment at this stage in their evolution. Rather, they should encourage themselves to live in the world and work in the world, because it is not the time yet. So it doesn't really seem that enlightened people are socially a threat to the world, if they're truly enlightened. Now, if they're not truly enlightened, at times they are a great threat to society and the people who come to them. But the actual enlightened persons seem to be relatively harmless initially. However, very often after their death, they seem to wield a greater effect. But we can discount this, perhaps it is just that the followers of these persons interpret to their own liking what the enlightened person or persons said and use it to promulgate their own ideas for social change. But the enlightened people seem to be relatively harmless. If we were to paraphrase what they say, we would say, be absorbed. Be absorbed in eternal consciousness. This world is as a grain of sand unto a desert on which many camels pass. If you were to ride such a camel across such a desert and come to a palm tree, you might notice a crow alighting on a palm tree and a coconut falling from it. From your vantage point on the camel's back, the camel's hoof perhaps might be resting on that very grain of sand, which is existence as we know it, past, present, and future. From your vantage point on the camel, which is on existence, you might see the crow alight on the top of the palm tree and watch a coconut fall. And you might assume that because the crow landed on the palm tree, the coconut fell. However, as it may be, the coconut could have just been falling at the time that the crow happened to stop by. This is the kind of nonsense that enlightened people talk about. That's why they're absolutely no social threat. Anyone foolish to listen to this sort of nonsense certainly will not be the worse for it, nor will they probably be the better for it. It's like reading Marvel comics. Now, in defense of the enlightened and in defense of the ideal of becoming enlightened, if we're going to be reasonable people, and I assume we are, and we want to examine both sides of a one-sided situation, we could say that it is observable that persons who seek enlightenment do go through major transpositions in terms of the personality structure and their lifestyle. And many of them claim to be happier, more euphoric. They have a feeling of well-being, which not only endures in times of adversity, but at times actually seems to increase, while they still suffer the pains and joys of human existence. They say that in their meditation and in their selfless giving, they come to understandings of the nature of existence. They appear to be tranquil and relatively harmless. And while we cannot substantiate their claims, we cannot necessarily disagree, since their journeys and their sojourns are inward and cannot be quantified or measured. But for a moment, let's enter into the world of suppose. Let's dream along for a moment and try and understand what the nature, from their point of view, of course, of spiritual evolution is. Spiritual evolution is a relatively mindless process, in the sense that everything is, always has been, and will never be. There is no time unless you're wearing a watch. Everything is convenient unless you happen to be frustrated. When you're feeling wonderful, the world is wonderful. If you're unhappy, the world is dark. All heavens and hells appear to be created within the self. Therefore, if we decide that there is no hell and only heaven, we will experience only heaven. Reality itself seems to gain a definition through the definition that we give it. Nothing is unless we make it so, which does not suggest that there is not an objective world. There are crows and there are coconuts, and there may be a causal link. But what we must consider more deeply is the nature of truth. There are words and there are words, and then there is silence. The art of meditation is the art of silence. In spite of all obstacles, in spite of all frustrations, one learns with patience and perseverance to quiet the mind. The mind is stimulated by many things, by the world vibratory forces, society, past conditioning, desires. But with patience and practice, one can still the mind. When the mind becomes absolutely calm and quiet, like a lake without ripples, one can see eternity. Eternity is neither here nor there, it's everywhere and nowhere, beyond definition. Most people in this world are very, very sad. Even in their relative happiness, they're unhappy. Their happiness is fleeting. They themselves are fleeting. Nature in its profusion brings bounty to the world. The generations come and the generations go. The worlds come and the worlds go. There seems at times to be no sense to it. And perhaps there isn't. Yet in that stillness, in that region of light which lies just beyond the corner of awareness, there is a sense of perfection. There is perfection. One can choose to pass through this life, going through the various experiences that one must go through, be you enlightened, unenlightened, or somewhere in the middle. And you can go through this world with joy and belief, or you can go through this world with doubt and frustration. At the end, in either case, one might say, cynically, that you will die. What was the difference? But the difference was in the moment, because there is no death. Death is just another idea, another dream. The appearance is an illusion in the sense that what you see is incomplete. You see yourself as an objectified being with a separate existence, with a beginning and an ending, who lives in the world, who works in the world, who plays, who suffers, who experiences joy. But when you meditate, when you take the time to go within yourself each day to that still point, when the mind becomes completely quiet, when nature dissolves, then we see that what we thought was reality was partiality, a dream, insubstantial. While in the dream, as you know, the dream seems perfectly real. We have no sense that we're in a dream. When we meditate, we gain the sense that life is a dream. When we come to that basic apprehension that life is a dream, we can then set our dreaming up. We can learn to dream different dreams if we choose to. Or we can go beyond the dream itself. There are 4 levels of consciousness: the waking state, the dreaming state, the deep sleep state and the fourth level of ecstasy or supraconscious awareness, the stateless state, from which there is no return, because no one can go into it. It is existence in its purest form. One form of reality is not holier than another. These are terminologies that we apply based upon relative understandings of what is and is not. But each person chooses in any given lifetime, at any given moment, what they wish, and what they wish is granted. Not so much in the sense of the physical, but in the sense of consciousness. You can choose to experience the world and play in its gardens of delight. And when the winter comes, it all goes away, as do you, the winter of our death, followed by the spring of our rebirth, the joyous cycle of existence, in which the pure beauty of the cycle is enough to sustain us, to comfort us. There is a wisdom in nature. We are nature. You can enter into the dream, the endless planes of reality, endless cycles of existence, endless worlds, coexisting, simultaneously existing in linear fashion, not existing. Existences that don't exist and can't exist. Beyond the mind's comprehension, we can journey, we can experience and become these realities or move through them in the world of the dream. We can take dreaming as in when we're asleep at night dreaming, and bring it into the daylight. We can see that there is no difference between being awake and being asleep. And we can consciously dream. Or realize that we have been consciously dreaming all along. That our very self, our very nature, this very life, with all of its importances, is but another dream. But in the dream state, we only move from dream to dream. In the waking state, we move from waking to sleeping and to waking. The deep sleep state is in a sense non-existence. There's no dreams. There's no relative awareness of this world. Yet there are subtle impressions. From the seed will come the sprout, the plant, the fruit. The seed, the sprout, the plant, the fruit. So, because one is in the deep sleep state, this does not mean that one has attained enlightenment, because something will come forward from it. Just as the ocean is calm, then the ocean becomes violent. So the latent impressions and tendencies from all of our past lives are stored within the individual jiva or self. During the deep sleep state, the ocean is calm. But these tendencies have not gone away. They're just in a state of stasis. They reawaken with waking. The supraconscious, on the other hand, is beyond definition or experience, in the sense that we must move beyond being an experiencer to know it. The supraconscious is really all that there is, except that the supraconscious at times dreams itself into the dreaming state wakes itself into the waking state, or sleeps itself into the deep sleep state. But to one who has knowledge of the supraconscious, who is it, not in theory, but in reality, all the worlds, all the grains of sands, all the camels, coconuts and crows combined, are both real and unreal. And while they appear to be in the dream, they are not. They are dreamless sleepers. They walk through this life as in a dream while waking. They live in a perpetual twilight or a perpetual sunrise. Not quite in one world or in the other world. We call them jivan muktas, liberated souls, self-realized beings. Until the time of death, when the final liberation, for those who are liberated, occurs. And the curtain opens on a new horizon, because for every ending there is a new beginning. Liberation does not indicate the extinction of the self. Rather, it indicates total consciousness, complete awareness of all selves, but not in a way that the self can understand or relate to. So we seek the sky, that endless sky of becoming, without knowing why. We can assign reasons, but that's all we've done. Even to say it's the trend of evolution, of reincarnation, the will of God, these are all reasons assigned. Seats taken in a homeroom class, waiting for the day to progress. So I have to come back to joy, the joy of life. Having journeyed to the farthest realities and beyond, having seen and lived in the eternal and in the finite, ultimately, I can only embrace humanity, which is eternity, and choose to be happy. And I see pain and frustration and ignorance or maya as opportunities to be happier, to proclaim happiness, to fight for it, which gives it meaning and purpose in what is otherwise a meaningless and purposeless world. The final condition of humanity is joy. Humanity will never collectively experience this joy. But yet, you as an individual are a collective. You house within you all beings that have ever been or will ever be. And when you turn your attention to the skies of eternity, whether to watch from the finite their infinite beauty or to merge with them and go beyond the finite and become them, two sides of the coin. Still, there'll be joy. Even if you fight against joy and frustrate yourself and disappoint yourself, still joy will always be beckoning you. Always beckoning you. Joy is always there. Because it is the very nature of this transitory life. Pain, anger, frustration, repression, oppression, hate, fear. These qualities do not in any way taint joy. Joy is joy. They're different notes in the symphony of life. If you focus on them, you will certainly experience a great deal of misery. If you focus on joy, you will become joy. But they can in no way stamp out the flame of joy or belief that our life on this earth, in this world, is not purposeless, that in spite of what we see in the world, which is not always pleasant, as we become mature adults and look at the nature of our planet, that this does not take away from joy, because these are passing shadows, dreams, phantoms in the night, which in the final joy of God consciousness, of merging with that which we really are, will dissolve. The rain comes for several weeks, and it may seem as if it's always been, but then the sun comes and the rain goes away. And then only the sun exists. This is the nature of the earth. We experience the sun and the rain. The supraconscious is beyond the clouds, where there is nothing but sun all the time. And each one of us has the capability, is the capability, of experiencing that endless light. We are that endless light, except that we forget that sometimes. For every ending, there is a new beginning. And thank God, for every beginning, there's an ending. Because otherwise, life would become terribly, terribly boring. We would find ourselves in the same condition, watching the same movie. I've seen The Road Warrior 7 times. The other night I saw it for the 7th time. But each time it was different. It was never the same. Because I was never the same. Whenever you see someone twice, you've lied to yourself. Because there's never been anything but now. To change your consciousness, to raise your perceptual awareness to bliss, to be willing to experience the agony of the absolute ecstasy. It's worth trying. You'll never know until you do, and even then you won't be sure. This is meditation and self-discovery. To be willing to experience so much ecstasy that you die, and to find yourself, a new self, on another shore, reunited in this life, but not quite. Different yet the same. Again and again, the process. Samadhi, they call it. I call it a good time. Samsara is nirvana. Sally is John. Or as T.S. Eliot said in Four Quartets, in my beginning is my end. All ways of trying to say what can't be said, but what we are continuing to say, an endless loop tape from lifetime to lifetime. So don't be discouraged. And if you are, don't be discouraged that you're discouraged. You must know that you are always on the threshold of a perpetual waking. It exists. It's there, just as there are craters on the moon, just as Judge Crater never returned. So one day you'll never return. Judge Crater, he knew something. That's what Orr was trying to tell Yossarian. There is a way out, and the way out is the way in. It is not by running away from the world, nor is it by running towards it. Rather, it's by embracing and surrendering to the world. Nature is the guideline and the way. Observe nature. Everything comes into being, exists, and goes into non-being. So simple, so perfect. What software to run the universe. IBM has a lot to learn. And think of the incredible operating system in high-level language to hold all of the worlds in manifestation and to dissolve them, to keep track of your karmic records alone. Endless, countless beings. Awesome. Totally awesome. So I can only suggest that you learn to be what my friend Theodore Rutke called a perpetual beginner. Because if you feel that you're knowledgeable, you may be. But to be a perpetual beginner is the happy part. Being a student is much more fun than being a teacher. So I think it's good for teachers to always be students, because otherwise they forget and they become very poor teachers, because they forget the joy of learning. Enlightenment is not an end product. It's the end of the product. And each step is a step in that direction. If you try and run away from it, you get closer to it. If you bury yourself in oblivion, then you'll find it there too. God exists in hell and heaven and at Denny's. So then the spiritual life, while it has many complexities, which I'm not alluding to right now, certainly, is simple. It's simple in the sense that all you need to do is whatever you like. And if you do that, you're in terrible trouble. But you have to go through that part of the cycle. You're all willing and eager to give your will away to God, but suppose God doesn't want it. There may be a surplus of wills. Perhaps you should wait till the economy in the inner world shifts. You may get a better price for your will. So try and be happy, because it doesn't matter. And if anybody asked you why you should be happy since nothing really matters, you can say, because I said so. And they might say, well, that doesn't matter. And then you can say, well, yes, but the fact that you said that doesn't matter either. So what's the difference? In other words, ultimately, when you probe eternity, when you meditate and attain enlightenment and all this stuff, you see that nothing really matters, or that everything matters. You can look at it either way. They're both frames of reference. They're ways of seeing life, neither of which is exactly correct, although both are definitely correct, depending upon which you're using. Beyond that is nirvana, patent pending. for a long time. Now, what you can make out of all this is probably whatever you'd like to. And I see nothing wrong with that. But I will continue to declare that life is joy. Even if you're not experiencing it, that does not mean that it is not so. Someone may love you and you may not see that, but that doesn't mean that they don't love you. So while you go through the bardo of transitory experiences, the emotional whirlpools and hysterectomies of existence, and while you may get down on yourself and complain and feel crummy, you know all along that you're good, that you're light, and that in spite of yourself, you will succeed. And after you've succeeded, it won't matter. But that doesn't matter. Jnana Yoga. So try and be among the happy. It's a thriving minority. To be happy, all you have to do is grin when it hurts. And it hurts sometimes. That's S&M. But since we have no control over anything, since we're not the doer, we're the done, or done for, as some would say. I mean, is there a difference between being baked and half-baked? I suppose it's a matter of temperature and time. Try not to worry so much. All the time you worry. You worry about the present, you worry about the past, you worry about the future. All you're worrying, what will it do? Give you ulcers. If you must worry, worry about happy things. You might worry that you'll become really happy and it might last. You might worry that you'll take the energy from meditation and transform it and use it in your life, with your career and your personal relationships, and become very successful, which is very easy. You might worry that you might even realize God. These are terrible things to worry about. But they're happier things to worry about. You can worry that you're going to be audited by the IRS, but your worries won't bring the audit closer or push it back further. You can worry that you might attain self-realization sooner than you had expected. Your worries won't bring it about. But it's a nicer field of attention. It's a nicer dream. And if you must experience a nightmare, why not enjoy it? Why go to a horror movie and be horrified? Why not see it as a great comedy? You can do the same thing with life. Humor, in my estimation, is the ultimate liberator. Therefore, if you are an advanced spiritual seeker, you will see a great many Peter Sellers movies and Woody Allen movies. There's much to be learned from laughing. Now, as you know, most people laugh at misfortune because it makes them feel macho, superior to others. And naturally, of course, the wheel of change will revolve, and one day they will find themselves in the position of those they laughed at. Knowing this in advance, it might be wise to laugh not at others, but at ourselves. Spiritual practice is never easy, and it's never hard. You may interpret it one way or the other, but it's the laughter and the humor that creates balance in our being. And even without a reason, it just is in itself a nicer dream. You can't stop or start yourself. You're an endless reality. You are the ultimate Brahman, the self, the one without a second cousin. So don't try so hard. There's a natural flow of light within each of us. And if you enter into that flow of light, you need not try so hard. Meditation is spontaneous. Spiritual discovery is spontaneous. That's when it's best, like sex, right? I was asked that recently on a panel show I didn't attend. Are sex and meditation the same? I said, absolutely not. You can meditate by yourself. Now I realize there is but I don't think that's what they asked on the panel show that I didn't attend. So if I were to sum this all up, I'd be in terrible trouble. Instead, I would just say, don't try so hard. Don't be so hard on yourselves. Don't hate yourselves so much. It doesn't bring about a quicker realization. You're here in this world to learn self-acceptance. The acceptance of your body, even though it's passing, that it is, yet that it's not. It's eternal, because it's eternal in the moment. The moments are eternal. They never end. We will always be, we have always been, in this condition, in this consciousness, and in all consciousnesses. You are all those who have ever attained enlightenment or ever will. You are the past, and the present, and the future, and that which lies beyond. Try and have more fun with your self-discovery. It doesn't have to be heavy. Find that subtle flow of light within yourself through experimenting. The year of living dangerously. Don't be afraid to reach and be different. Don't be afraid to be the same. Find what works. Trust yourself. If you can't trust yourself, who can you trust? That which is not the self. Life can be quite wonderful, and is. More people love you than you realize. You just don't want to see, yet. The self veils itself in countless forms, only to unveil them at a later date. So don't be frustrated. Just live while there's life. That's really more than enough. And if you find yourself walking my way, the way of meditation, then you'll practice stillness, self-giving. You'll enjoy humility and purity and beauty. You'll go beyond the waking, dreaming, and deep sleep states to the Turiyananda consciousness, the consciousness of the absolute reality. And see that you were always there. That there never was a there never was an always, or there always is an always. But in that stillness is perfection. And in the physical is perfection too. They're not different, they're the same.